Hillary Clinton, of course, hoping to secure enough delegates tomorrow in California and New Jersey to clinch the Democratic nomination and gain some momentum going into the convention and, of course, the general election. But Bernie Sanders, I got to tell you, he shows no signs of giving in. The race in California, in fact, is a dead heat. Sanders solidifying a case to bring it to a convention to really battle it out and maybe make a case that he should be the nominee.
We have now won well over 9 million votes. We have won in every state that we have contested in. And this is also a point that we make to the superdelegates and we make to the whole convention when we talk about the future of America, is that in overwhelming numbers, we are winning the support of people 45 years of age or younger.
So will Sanders continue to block the road of Clinton's path to the White House? And if so, what does it mean for Hillary Clinton and her ability to fight Donald Trump in the general election? Let's bring in David Morey, Ford O'Connell, Caitlin Huey-Burns, and Eric Guster. Ford, let me start with you. I got to tell you, I don't know maybe if he's tired or not, but the Bernie Sanders sounded a little bit exhausted right there. And a lot of people are saying behind the scenes, enormous pressure for him to throw in the towel after California, win or lose.
I disagree. It all depends on whether or not he wins California, because if he wins California, then he can make a conceivable argument to the superdelegates, which are 712 of, and Clinton can't get the nomination without these unbound delegates, that frankly he's better against Trump in the national polls. He has momentum winning the most populist Democratic stronghold, and frankly she has an email indictment hanging over her head. So until that's resolved, he's still in the race.
David, you understand how this works better than anyone else behind the scenes. Certainly Bernie Sanders has been a thorn in the side of not just Hillary, but the establishment Democratic Party. What do they have to offer him to get him to sort of back out, if you will?
Well, they got to give him some time, Charles. Welcome back, by the way. They got to give him some time. They've got to give him some time to absorb where he is. If he beats her in California tomorrow, and that's very possible, you see the tracking polls, he's coming up. Who knows what's going to happen? That's 450 delegates. He cannot mathematically beat her, as your former panelist just said, without winning the 712 super delegates. But, all kinds of things could happen. Remember, we got a Benghazi committee hearing report coming out. We've got FBI issues coming out this month. I think Hillary's going to be the nominee, but we still have some hurdles to jump over.
Caitlin, it's for the first time we're hearing Bernie Sanders you talk about some of these things. He's not hammering Hillary with the emails or foreign policy, but he's talking about it more and more at a time when a lot of people thought if he was going to concede, he would, because these are things he could have used a long time ago.
Right. It was interesting the other day when he was campaigning, he was going after her for the foundation, and that's something that Donald Trump will certainly should use to his advantage, I'm sure, if he's savvy that way. But he's also going really hard after Trump as well, kind of setting up to his supporters, look, the goal ultimately is to defeat Donald Trump. So I think that could be useful to Clinton. Sanders, if he has to flip super delegates, that kind of runs counter to his whole strategy this whole time, which has been, railing against a rigged system. And that would work if he weren't behind in pledged delegates. If he were close to her in pledged delegates, I think he could make that argument a little more soundly.
Not unlike Ted Cruz being the so-called anti-establishment candidate, Eric, but toward the end wooing the establishment to get him over the finish line. This is another Hail Mary. Bernie Sanders would be going against the grain. He hated superdelegates. Now he's trying to get them on board.
He has to get them on board, and Bernie is not tired of running this election. He was just at the Kanye West 2 a.m. concert last night. So he's going to go all the way.
Canceled that.
Well, he was, and there was a big problem that he canceled it, but Bernie was there. That's why he sounds pretty bad. But he's going to go all the way in this election. He's going to go all the way to the convention. I don't believe he's going to concede. Of course, Hillary wants him to concede. She's saying, oh, he's going to give up. This is the time that I did. But that does not matter. This is an election season like one we've never seen before with all types of factors. So I don't believe he's going to concede.
Charles, to Eric's point, let's understand that the longer this drags on, who the biggest beneficiary out there is, and that is Donald Trump. And the reason is because Hillary's having a hard time pulling together Bernie Sanders supporters, particularly those between 18 and 35. And I'm not saying they're going to vote for Trump, even though some polls say they might. But if they do stay home, guess what? Donald Trump could win this campaign right now in the time between now and the Democratic convention.
David, I just saw a poll, I think a YouGov poll earlier today, suggesting 1/5 of Bernie supporters would go with Donald Trump if Bernie Sanders is not in the general election. That number, of course, could even grow higher. So what is it? What has to happen? Because Bernie Sanders more than likely won't be the Democratic nominee. So is he deliberately wrecking the party, or is this something that he really wants to get from them?
I think in the end, Charles, he's going to want to beat Donald Trump, and you've got to process where you are as a candidate. The psychological burdens that this candidate feels, that a candidate feels at this point, are gigantic. So we got to give him a little time post-California to process this. And I'll tell you something, another point is Trump has had a pretty difficult last 4 or 5 days against Hillary Clinton. So this is going to be a very interesting time for both candidates to sort of get up and play a more effective game at winning this election.
David, how come you don't sound as worried about potential indictments for Hillary Clinton, more Benghazi stuff coming out with Hillary Clinton, more things from the past between her, Bill, and the foundation? Why is the Democratic establishment okay with this? Or is Biden still somewhere, just in case, break glass?
I think it's hard to imagine how Joe Biden could get in the race. Firstly, you have to jump over Bernie Sanders, who won, 21 states, 40% of the vote. I think that's hard to imagine. I think the Benghazi committee report will be tough. The FBI investigation will be tough. But in some ways, it's pre-baked into the marketplace of politics here, just like some of this information that Janet Yellen talks about is already pre-baked into the stock market, if you will.